Breaking into the housing market can feel like an uphill climb and next to impossible for millennials, but with a little home buying savvy, that home ownership dream might be closer than you think. Here with the top mistakes millennials can avoid when buying their first home is real estate expert Karyn Filiatrault. Good to have you with us. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, so, one of the things we hear all the time is, wait, buying a first house? That is absolutely impossible if you're a millennial. What do you say to that?
It's not impossible. Arguably, it's a little harder with the way home prices are all across the country, but it's not impossible. I don't want to be the preacher like my parents to save, save, save. But the reality is, you need a down payment, so you got to save for that. And then the other thing I think millennials need to know is that you can't buy your first home like your first dream home. Like right away,
you got to work your way up.
You got to work
your
way up the property ladder, right? So
Yeah,
just keep that in mind. Maybe it's a condo before you move into your beautiful dream home.
All right, so let's go through some of the mistakes that millennials could make. So let's start with a big one, which is the finances. What's your advice here?
Well, you need to get a pre-approval. So a big mistake is that people, they go online and they say, oh goodness, I'll use the online calculator and that'll be for sure, I'll be able to afford that.
Right.
Or they have been banking with the same bank and they feel like the bank is gonna take care of them, give them a good allegiance. I'm not dissing the banks, I'm just saying don't walk into the bank and take the first teller that you see and go get a pre-approval that way. Go get a pre-approval from a qualified mortgage broker.
Does it hurt your credit score if you're going around and getting pre-approvals everywhere?
No, you just want to go to the right one. So get a good referral from somebody, right, to make sure that you get something. And this can, it helps you in the end so that you can close on the property, not face a lawsuit, not face loss of a deposit.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, so let's say now we're actively looking at houses. What should we keep in mind?
So you don't want to walk in with blinders on, right? So everybody falls in love with the staging. The furry throws, the beautiful little baby room.
The house that you would never actually live in.
Yeah, it's always
you just wish
pristine
you would.
and perfect. Yeah. And they walk in and they're like, oh, I love this so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't say, the problem isn't falling in love with that house. The problem is not falling in love with the same house without the furry throw, right? So just, open up your mind. And then the other point is just, don't be so scared of things like knob and tube and high-tech plumbing. These are things that people, hear about and they read about and they're so fearful of. If the price is right, then use the savings to fix it.
And asbestos too. I mean, people are really fearful of that. It's not that difficult to remove. You just got to know the right person to call. All right, what if you're walking into a house, you don't have representation, and the seller's agent who's, showing the house says, oh, I can represent you. What would you say to that?
Yeah, that's a mistake. Using the seller's agent to help you buy a property is like using your ex-spouse's divorce attorney to help you mitigate the divorce settlement.
That's
right?
a good equation.
It really is, right? So they're very nice. They're going to take a double commission by helping you.
Yeah.
And their job is basically to represent the needs and desires of the seller. They're under contract to do that. So they're very lovely. They know the house very well, but seriously, hire your own buyer's agent. They don't cost money. They're paid for by the seller, and then they're there to help you negotiate the best deal.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Okay, so you've said no to that seller agent. You say, no, thank you. I'm going to get my own representation. So now you have your own agent.
Yes.
Advice with that agent. How are you supposed to interact and deal with them?
Okay, so the number one mistake sometimes people make is they don't listen to them. Right, so I'm just saying, put your ego aside, right? You can't diagnose your own illness online, just like you can't, do
even though we try sometimes.
Yeah, I know. We certainly try.
Our doctors love that.
And everybody, I know they do, right? And real estate agents are the same likewise, right?
Yeah.
And goodness, there's so much information online. Use it and talk to your real estate agent. Trust them. If they say the home needs a home inspection, trust them. If they say this home is outside of your price point or it's listed too low, they're not saying that just so that you can spend more. We're not sharks in that sense, right? We're there to help you so that you don't fall in love with something that you can't afford.
Okay, let's talk about the last mistake. So you've got all boxes checked. You've got your pre-approval, home inspection, closing date. So what is the last mistake to avoid?
Thou shalt not muck up their finances.
Nice words there.
Yes.
Very carefully selected.
So just before you buy the property and upon closing, seriously, you really, you need to make sure that your credit score remains divine. So that means no buying a car unless you plan on living in it one day.
Right.
No co-signing somebody else's loan. Don't go into Canadian Tire. Nothing against Canadian Tire, but don't take their credit card thinking, oh, I'm going to have a home now. I'm going to need a new credit card. Don't apply for any credit cards.
So just don't do any, literally don't do anything.
Yes, don't buy exotic vacations and put them on your credit card.
That has happened quite a bit.
Yes,
people get really excited, I guess.
I had a client, he literally bought a beautiful Mercedes right before closing, and I got the call from the mortgage broker that said, what just happened? And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was.
And then the deal falls through.
The deal didn't fall through miraculously, but it wasn't a good choice.
There was one time I rented my husband when we first started dating a Porsche because he loved cars so much, and we thought that we were at the caliber that people drive Porsches, so we ended up buying sunglasses that matched the look of the Porsche. terrible. I paid off those things for like 4 months.
Yeah.
So the same kind of idea. These are really helpful tips. Thanks so much for being
My
here,
pleasure.
Karyn. Always a pleasure.